Hi, welcome back. In this video, we're going to talk about what to do with your opposing viewpoint source. The opposing viewpoint source is the source you found that is opinionated and disagrees with the thesis that you developed. I'm pretty confident everybody knows what this is. And indeed, by the time you're watching this video, you're going to have submitted your annotated bibliography and you'll want to look at my feedback on that, right? And if you ran into any problems identifying an opposing viewpoint source, I will let you know, right? But I think for most of you, you're going to have that source that disagrees with your thesis ready to go, and you're thinking to yourself, get on with it already. Tell me how I utilize these Toulmin concepts we've been talking about with this source, right? So you did some reading about this, you watched a Prezi about this. Now let's look at some examples. You know that I like to use student examples, right? And so as you can see here, there was a sample paragraph for you to look at. Now, I do need to let you know, unfortunately, I only have one sample paragraph for you to look at this time, because the sample paper about e-cigarettes, even though it's very good overall, there are some issues with how it deals with the opposing viewpoint source. The main issue is that the person actually chose an informational article, right? Which is not really a very fair way to characterize the other side's argument. And that's the thing about student samples, right? They're not perfect. They are, I give you, they're A papers, right? But this one here is a pretty good example of what working with an opposing viewpoint source looks like, right? So even if you are writing about that e-cig topic, I think this video will be helpful for you, because even though it is a different topic, they're doing the same things. Likewise, even if you are someone who does not want to see sugar taxes be instituted, right? Obviously, you're going to have a different approach, right? But you're going to use these same concepts. You'll have a different kind of opposing viewpoint source. You're going to have a source that wants the tax, and then you're going to do these same things with it. You'll have a concession and a refutation, etc. Okay, so let's talk about those things, which are all at the bottom here, right? So the first thing is a topic sentence. Look, this is a common feature of body paragraphs. There are plenty of published op-eds and published position papers that do this. Topic sentences show the reader what's coming, they prevent confusion, and they help create an organized argument, right? And so we're not going to start with a quote. You never should start a paragraph with somebody else's words instead of your own. It creates reader confusion. And we're not going to start with a source introduction. That's important, but that's kind of a boring way to start a paragraph, right? So instead, look at what the student has done here. One of the reasons why a lot of people do not support a tax on soda is because not everyone is obese or unhealthy. Now, look, the word choice here is a bit too informal. I might have taken a point off for that, but I like what she's doing here, because this sentence makes it clear to the reader, okay, look, I'm trying to understand where people who disagree with me are coming from, right? And so she's thinking about them here, and then she's thinking about other reasons people might oppose it, right? And these are the reasons that these authors, pardon me, um, offer in this article, right? Some of the things that they explore in this article, right? So that's the topic sentence. Okay, makes it very clear. Opposing viewpoint source coming. This is important, right? Because you want to make it clear that you are showing the reader a source that doesn't agree with you, right? That helps build your credibility. Okay, here is the source introduction, right? She's got their first and last names and the title of the article. Now, we do not need a full note on authority for these people. Do not cut and paste things from the annotated bibliography. It might, however, be relevant to mention that they're both economists, right? That's one of the reasons, one of the things that makes them credible to write about taxation, right? Okay, so then she gives you their argument, not just their position, right? but she is trying to delve into why they hold the position they do, why they do not support this tax. You can see the efforts she has gone to show that she understands the other side. She's not just saying, here's the article, here's why I think they're dumb, right? You want to do this too. Take the time to explain their argument fairly, right? So that's where she's doing that. But of course, you don't want to end the paragraph here because now you're sort of convincing people to disagree with you. This is where those Toulmin concepts really come into play. So first you want to make a concession. You want to identify what is a point the readers make here, or the source makes here that you can't argue with, right? Or what is something that they say that you actually agree with, right? That shows the reader that you are not biased, that you are willing to really try to authentically consider what that source is talking about. Okay. Now the concession here is a little bit underdeveloped, right? But she does have one. It's right here, right? And so she says, okay, I get where they're coming from that a tax is a one size fits all approach to the obesity crisis, which is of course a multifactorial issue, right? And so she sort of acknowledges that not everyone is the same. But again, there needs to be more explanation there, right? She might even admit that these authors include some compelling examples of times that the government has tried to intervene on health policy in the past and failed miserably. Right. But, she is efforting to show that she's willing to give some ground there. But I do think this concession needs a bit more development. And I'm sure when you think about your source, you can develop a good concession. Again, think about what do they have in there? That's a good point. You don't want to dismiss them just because you disagree with their argument, right? What are some good points they make that you can't argue with? Okay. Then again, the concession and refutation, that's a two-step process, right? They're very closely related. You give some ground in the concession, and then in the refutation, or response is the word that your textbook likes. That is where you explain why you still disagree with them, even though you're willing to give that ground, right? And so all of this is the refutation. More on that in a minute, right? Because the Prezi talks about how you want to have a clear signal that you're done giving ground, and now you're going to show why you disagree, right? And a lot of times, it's a word like however or nonetheless or something like that. But, again, I don't have a list of perfect words to give you to choose from. The idea is that you're sending a clear signal to the reader that you're done giving ground, and now you're showing why you disagree. So for her, she used although, right? And so in the although creates a sentence structure where where there's this contrast between the two parts of the sentence, right? And so the first part of the sentence is the concession, and the second part is where she introduces the refutation. And the refutation here is actually pretty good, right? Where she says, look, I understand their point. And of course, she's not going to say I, right? Because she's not going to use first person or personal experience because it's a position paper, right? Anyhow, so she says she shows that she understands their concern about one size fits all regulations, but that doesn't mean it would be useless to try, right? Which is kind of an interesting point. And then she shows you why. She basically just says, look, we've been trying what these two authors have been suggesting for years, where we leave people to their own devices to, find ways to help, be healthy, and they're struggling, right? The statistics about obesity in the United States suggest that Americans might need some assistance here, is what she's trying to get at, right? And so she believes that support in terms of public health should come from the government, right? And that's why she supports these sugar tax regulations, right? So again, it's a nicely developed refutation. I can't tell you how many sentences your refutation should be. I can tell you one sentence is not enough. right? I've seen some students spend a whole paragraph on the refutation, right? Like I've seen some students do this, right? So this sort of introduces it, and then you provide a whole paragraph of development here. She could even cite a source to help support the refutation. Again, that's up to you, right? But I'm just kind of giving you some examples of different approaches to creating a successful argument, right? Like Toolman gives us some ideas, but there is no I'm not trying to force you into some kind of perfect approach because there isn't such a thing. You have to think about what argument you want to make and what the sources that you've chosen, right, that I've signed off on once I graded your annotated bibliography. And you want to think about what is the most convincing way to arrange the writing about these sources, right? And of course, you have to this is the same with the grounds warrant section, right? You watched the other video about that. You have to utilize these Toolman-oriented concepts to develop the writing because that's what I'm looking for when I grade. Now, whether I agree with you or not, how successfully you've deployed these concepts to convince an academic reader. That's what we're looking for. Well, that's about all I've got. I hope that you found this helpful. Continue moving forward in the module materials. You are almost done. I really appreciate the work that you've done in this compressed session, and I'm really confident that you're going to find success in that position paper. As usual, if you have a question about anything in this video or anything else in the content, shoot me a message in Canvas or stop by office hours. Take care now.